It began like any other day. The sun rose over the skyline, coffee brewed in 1,000 kitchens, phones buzzed with news, memes, stock alerts, a society humming, not perfectly but steadily, the illusion of control, the comfort of routine. Then, without warning, it stopped. Phones went dark, the internet froze, no Wi-Fi, no cell towers, no news anchors, just silence. It was a silence no one expected, not the eerie quiet of a Sunday morning but the crushing, heavy void of something vital vanishing. At first it was written off as a blackout, a systems glitch. People waited, they joked, must be another cyber attack, but the minutes stretched, banks froze, traffic lights died, emergency lines rang into nothing, planes stayed grounded, ATMs blinked out, and every newsfeed ended with the same frozen message: signal lost. Within the first hour, every nation on Earth stared into a new kind of abyss. Not a war, not a bomb, something worse, a global unraveling with no one in charge. People flocked to stores. Grocery aisles were stripped in hours, gas stations jammed with honking lines, fistfights over jugs of water. Not because people were bad, but because fear had set in, that subtle, creeping truth whispered through crowds: no one's coming to fix this. Police officers responded. At first, firefighters showed up, until there was no water pressure. Hospitals filled and overflowed. When the backup generators failed, doctors were forced to choose who would live and who would fade in the dark. And in living rooms around the world, families sat huddled together, eyes scanning windows, trying to believe it would be okay. By the third day, everything changed. Without power, water stopped flowing, no flushing toilets, no clean showers, food spoiled in warm refrigerators, garbage festered in the streets. In cities, desperation bloomed fast. Mobs formed, not gangs, just ordinary people, hungry, scared, out of time. Gunshots became common. Police stations were abandoned, not because the officers were cowards, but because they went home to protect their own. The currency of the modern world, money, clout, Wi-Fi, evaporated. Now, value had new names: canned beans, clean water, ammunition, insulin, and those with none took what they needed. The cities burned. Downtown cores became graveyards of twisted metal and shattered glass. Hospitals overrun. Subways silent. Airports ghostly. The infrastructure that once held everything together was now a hollow skeleton. Outside the cities, small towns fared better, for a while, but trust vanished. Strangers weren't just strangers. They were threats, thieves, or worse, survivors more desperate than you. New leaders emerged, not elected, not appointed. They came armed. Former soldiers, ex-cops, street crews, angry loners, anyone willing to do what others wouldn't. They enforced rules with guns, built barricades, took supplies. Some offered protection. Others offered only fear. Far from the cities, life continued, differently. Farmers became kings, landowners became targets. Those who could hunt, fish, fix, and heal had value. Those who couldn't became a burden, or an opportunity. Communities split. Some turned inward. Strict rules guarded gates, others welcomed outsiders, and paid dearly for their kindness. Electricity was gone. So was medication, refrigeration, communication. People relied on candles, barter, wood stoves, radio static, anything that felt like life before. But make no mistake, the world was no longer a society. It was a patchwork of fragile enclaves clinging to old values in a world with new rules. By now the majority of the vulnerable were gone. The elderly, the sick, those who waited too long. No help came, no aid arrived. Governments had collapsed into silence. There were no elections, no emergency broadcasts, only fragments remained. Military bases turned into fortresses, rogue satellites broadcasting looping distress calls, unreachable islands running off solar power. The world had stopped being about progress. Now it was about survival. There were no more influencers, no more streaming shows, no more trending hashtags. The future had no audience. Yet, not all was lost. In forgotten valleys and forest clearings, communities began to rebuild. Campfires replaced streetlights. Gardens grew where strip malls once stood. Children, those who survived, were taught not about algebra or pop culture, but about fire, foraging, trust, and danger, and stories. Stories of a world where you could fly to another country in hours, where lights danced on skyscrapers, where a stranger could send you a message across the globe in a second. To them, it sounded like magic. To us, it was just Tuesday. The day society broke down wasn't loud. There were no bombs, no mushroom clouds, just the slow, relentless collapse of everything we thought was stable. Not because we weren't warned, not because we weren't capable, but because we built a world so complex, it only needed one spark to fall. And now, in the silence that remains, we ask ourselves the only question that matters: can we build something better, or will we make the same mistakes all over again?